What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman. And back with me today, we got the great Daniel Steele. Dan, how we doing, brother?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Doing good. You know, we were just talking off camera. You got yourself a nice piece of property this week. What's happening there in Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm just getting ready for the bread lines.
No shit, right? So I was asking you before we started if you were handy with carpentry, and you had a perfect answer. You said not yet. So what's the plan with this thing?
So it's all happening pretty quick. We looked at it on Sunday for the second time with the realtor, placed an offer. They accepted Monday. We went out and measured or said where we would want the septic yesterday. We got the septic permit today. So we should be able to close in a couple of weeks. We're in East Nashville now, and I really like it. But I've always wanted some space and some land to do something with. So we're going to go pretty inexpensive. If you drive around this area in particular, like up into Kentucky, into Illinois, through Tennessee, you see these tiny homes for sale, like next to gas stations. I found the manufacturer of those.
Oh, nice.
So it's these Amish folks about 45 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to go up and talk to them.
Well made. That's freaking cool.
Yeah.
So the way that we always did it, like back in Northern California, I had a buddy that did it this way, and this is how I always wanted to do it: was you park an RV on it. Essentially, you move into the RV, you build a lean-to over it, you build a barn off of that, you build a granny unit into the barn, and then finally you build the house after you move into the granny unit. And that was kind of the. But I've never looked into these tiny homes.
Yeah. See, we're driving up there tomorrow. I think we can get a unit that we like for less than 10,000.
That's not bad. I was actually I was thinking about putting a tough shed in my backyard to rent out.
And so the plan, it really depends on where we can put the septic. There's an easement on the property with the power lines, and like there's a few cleared places. The first thing we're going to do is drop off a 40-foot shipping container, use that for like a garage, workshop, that sort of thing. Clear a little bit. There's a little creek that runs kind of through the middle of the property, so clear some of the trees out by there and put a tiny home up there. Now the septic might have to go where we were planning on putting the shipping container, so that's kind of up in the air. But the idea is to put 2 or 3 of these little units. One where my wife, my dogs, and I live. One that's like a lodge or whatever.
Yeah, rental
with a nice kitchen, bathroom, shower, all those things, and then one that's more like a bunkhouse for people if they come out and stay with us.
That's perfect.
And then I did a little plant anarchy. I took all of I saved the seeds from the stuff that I cut out of my garden, and we have a neighbor behind us in the alley that doesn't clear their part of the alley, so I've been dumping the seeds back there, hoping just to get volunteer fruits next year.
Yeah.
But I took a bunch of the seeds out there. Then I planted some lavender and mint. Hopefully we'll get out this weekend and we'll be able to plant some winter crops like lettuce, Swiss chard, things like that. So
that's awesome.
Get a little, we're really limited with garden space. Like we bought a bunch of winter crops, but that means that we're gonna have to pull out all of our summer crops to make room for it. But now we'll be able to take care of both, and you can get like self-watering systems that are solar powered for like $50.
Yeah, it's amazing some of the stuff they make. My garden's rocking right now. Like I expanded it this year. Like I built a garden 2 years ago, I think, and it just like I've never really gardened before. Like my grandfather had a garden when I was growing up at our house, but like I didn't help him in it or anything like that. So I like grossly underestimated how much space everything was going to take up. And so it was like I had some strawberries, I had some cucumbers, and some tomatoes. And like within a couple weeks, the entire garden was just overgrown and you couldn't get to anything. It was like, holy shit, I got to make this thing twice as big. So I dug out, like personally by hand, I dug out this massive garden. It's like 30 feet by 20 feet. And I dug it out like 2 feet deep, and I put good like topsoil, and I've got a recycling place next door to my house that does their own compost, and they sell it for $10 a yard.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So I just
you just
mix a
filled it in there.
bunch of that shit in there, right? And I actually I bought a
Nice.
bunch of it that I'm going to dump all over my lawn this year. I figure like I've got these nasty spots in my lawn, so I'm just going to dump compost on it and hope the snow packs it down.
Smart. We rented this place in East Nashville last October, and when we got here, there's this overrun garden with like heirloom cherry tomatoes and bell peppers.
Mhm.
And at the end of the year with tomatoes in this area, I don't know if it's like universal. You have to tear out all the tomato
Yeah.
plants because they can ruin your soil. So we pulled all those out. We put in like Swiss chard carrots, shit like that for the winter last year. And then we put in another garden, and there's a horticulturist like right up the block from us that posts in a Facebook group. So we paid like $2 or $3 a plant for really good tomatoes, really good peppers, shit
Oh,
like
that's
that.
awesome.
So we started a new garden with tomatoes, and the old garden we just had a bunch of Swiss chard that we're still harvesting the Swiss chard from last fall. But then we had all these volunteer cherry tomatoes pop up, and my wife there was like a little, just like dirt in the ground where there used to be a bush. You could call it a garden.
Mhm.
My wife started throwing the cherry tomatoes in there. We've harvested probably 300 cherry
Oh
tomatoes.
yeah.
We have another 2 or 300, and that's all from volunteers. And we've harvested probably 25, 30 like nice sized tomatoes, and we have like another 75 on the vines.
That's
And that's
awesome.
just from 5 plants.
So
So
I've got 2 Romas, 1 yellow cherry, and then 1 Cherokee purple. The Cherokee purple hasn't started yet, but my 2 Romas, I think I've probably pulled 50, 60 pounds of tomatoes out of that plant. And then the cherries, same, like it's crazy. We don't have like we can't eat them all. We just can't. There's
yeah.
way too many. We've been making bruschetta and taking it to like barbecues, and it's just fucking killer. Like we made this bruschetta, and it kind of like all fell into place with me. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, this is incredible! Like it's the best bruschetta I've ever had." And I thought about it, and I was like, "This is why when everybody goes to Italy, they rave about the
Yeah.
food, is because they
Yeah.
do it like that. You know, they're not
Yes.
doing this mass production." Disgusting food thing that we're doing. You know, I looked into strawberries. So I planted strawberries a couple years ago, and you eat them, and it's like, holy crap, these are incredible. And then you go buy some from the store, and they taste like water. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And I actually looked into this, and apparently they don't pull strawberries when they're red at all. They pull them when they're green, and then they pump them full of chemicals to turn them red. They're not really ripe. It's
Oh,
just like a
wow.
snap that they do to make them look ripe. So that's why they taste like
Okay.
water, which is interesting.
Oh, wow. So we started pulling all of our tomatoes green and putting them in paper bags, and they're
Mhm.
ripening in the paper bags. One thing that I did that you might enjoy if you have a lot of the little cherry tomatoes, I cut them in half when they were green, and I pickled them,
Oh,
and
interesting.
they're so good.
Ooh,
Because since they're not all the way ripe, it holds the form better than pickling a ripened tomato. So it's
interesting.
crisp and it has a snap
Yeah,
to it, but
that's
it's really
awesome.
delicious.
That's awesome.
And then another thing we did, sorry,
No, you're
you
good.
started making a point. Okay.
Nah, nah, go ahead.
Um,
You're the guest.
we uh we pulled the juice out of some tomatoes, not the juice, the water. So you blend up the tomato, and then
Mhm.
you run it through a cheesecloth, and you end up with just water. And we used that to make focaccia for my wife's sourdough starter, and we made pizza on that. It
Oh,
was, and I was thinking about this. It's impossible to do that at scale. Like the tomatoes that we use, if we had bought them, would have been like 22, $24, right?
yeah.
Just to make one loaf of bread. So you just can't eat like that unless you're doing fine dining, which I've been lucky enough to have quite a few fine dining experiences. And a lot of the food that we make tastes like that, and you just can't find food like that in a restaurant or something. Because there's no way you could put fucking 5 tomatoes and just make water out of them unless you had just so many tomatoes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I use a lot of basil to cook with. Like I make steak
Oh,
for
we have
dinner a
so
lot.
much
So I
basil.
do this
Yeah.
like rosemary and basil butter with garlic in it. And I kind of bathe the steak in that. And I make this foam at it towards the end. I kind of put this foam on it. I need to make a cooking video with the steak because it's fucking incredible the way it does. And so I've got all this basil, and we were making last year we did what's it called? Fuck. Pesto. We did pesto, and
Yeah.
boy, I've got this what's it called? Shit, Thai basil, and we did this Thai basil pesto. I mean, come on, man, you can't beat it. It's
Yeah.
just incredible. And it's so nice. Like I've got like 20 jars of pesto and then like another 20 jars of tomato sauce. I think I'm going to do like one of my best drinks as a bartender was Bloody Mary. I made a mean Bloody Mary mix. So I'm going to try and like grow everything I possibly can in the garden to make the Bloody Mary mix. So we'll see we'll see how that turns out.
Have you ever fucked with making sourdough yourself?
I haven't. No. I have a hard time with bread right now because I don't have teeth. I've got dentures, and I can't eat in my dentures. So essentially, like I can eat soft bread, but no toast. Like even when we do the bruschetta, I have to fucking have normal bread. It sucks. This is a real pain in the ass.
So we buy. There's this bagel place near here, and it's rare to find a really good bagel outside of New York City.
Mhm.
I'll argue that all the time. And this guy makes great bagels. It's a Chinese restaurant. He runs it during the day, provides mostly to other restaurants, but he also will sell bagels, and you can get a bagel sandwich and shit in the morning. So my wife talked to him, and we found it's expensive flour. A lot of the cost is in the shipping, but we buy some of the most expensive flour available, and we're still only spending $15 a month on all of our bread goods.
Wow.
So sourdough, you don't have to just make bread. You can make pancakes, waffles, cookies, anything.
And then you just keep starter going, right?
Yeah. So my wife's friend wants to get in the business of just selling sourdough starters as like a side hustle or something. And sorry if you can hear my dog. Somebody's at my door.
It's a podcast. No one cares.
Yeah. Fair. So she wrote these great instructions on how to maintain it. And my wife is going to do a run because basically what you do is you dry it, and then I can send you I think it's 6 grams of chips, and then you have bread forever.
Wow.
As long as you have flour and water.
Yeah.
And it's not just like the Boule sourdough. Everything that you can make that's a baked good, you can even do lattes with it.
Wow. We used to get our sourdough in San Francisco, the bar I worked at. We did clam chowder. They want to be like Boston, I guess. And we got starter from this, I think it was, I don't remember what it's called, but it's some big company in San Francisco that makes sourdough. And they've had their starter going for 300 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's at Boudin's.
Yeah, it's Boudin's. That's what it is. Yeah. And their bread's not that great. Like I've had better, but it's kind of cool that it's, 300 years old or whatever it is. So I told you about my potential side hustle that I was trying to work on was the roses. Roses turned out to be a little harder than I expected in the area that I'm in. They take up a lot of space. They're a bit harder to propagate than I thought they would be. So I've kind of adjusted what I'm doing. So I've got this big spot in my front yard with all of these succulents, just fucking tons of succulents. So I decided, I'm going to move them into my backyard because I've got all these areas that are open and just rock, and we have problems with weeds, and the succulents seem to outcompete the weeds for the most part. Once they get down, I don't get too many weeds. So I've probably got 10, 15 different kinds of succulents growing in my house. And I went to Home Depot. They had a bunch of them on sale because it's the end of the season. So I bought a bunch of these fuckers. And I decided to turn my master bathroom, into an atrium. So I've got this big bathtub that I've only used. The only time I've ever used it is when I had my hemorrhoid removed and I had to soak in salt. But aside from that, I've never used it. And it's got the best natural light in the entire house. It's just like a corner in my bathroom. It's got 2 nice windows. And so I said, fuck it. I'm going to build a deck over this fucker, and I'm going to put some racks in, and I'm going to do these succulents. And I've got a spot to, put signs in front of my house. I live right off this main road, so people, drive past my house every day. So we're gonna try succulents, maybe some roses. What was the other one I was thinking of? There's something else strawberry starters. I'm gonna do I've got my strawberry. I've probably got 500 to 1,000 strawberry starters in my garden right now. It's so overgrown, it's crazy.
We couldn't get strawberries to grow this year. We planted one batch in the fall, and that's the only one that's still alive. And we tried buying some. Maybe those are starters where you just kind of plant it and becomes the strawberry plant. We bought some that were already sprouted. I took the skin of a bunch of strawberries and tried growing out, planting it under dirt and growing it out. and we just can't get strawberries to grow for some reason. But
That sucks.
I'm sure people are hoping to hear a food podcast.
I know, right? I wasn't really planning on it, but this is interesting stuff. Like, this is what we've
Yeah,
got to do. Like, moving forward,
yeah,
this is an important. A lot of like, it's unfortunately kind of boring, but this is far more important than who wins president.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
way more important. Learn how to garden,
Yeah,
get your shit together, be self-sufficient.
because the price control has always failed,
Hmm.
always. But then on the other side, Trump's tariff policies could really cause problems in our supply chain too, because most of our food comes from overseas.
Hmm.
Um,
South
if you
America,
look,
like South
South
America is
America
where we
and
get all our
Asia,
beef. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
All the fruit is grown elsewhere. Like, we don't grow
yeah,
hardly any fruit in this country.
yeah. Yeah, I met this guy at the bar a couple months ago. He was just in town because he had family, but his family, they were British and they owned a farm in Mexico. And they had something like 6,000 acres or something, and they provide most of the okra for the United States.
Wow, that's crazy. I was going to bring
But
this up while you were talking about your utilities. I had this guy on, this is probably a year ago. He was an expat, and he was developing this ranch or whatever you want to call it down in Mexico. And he's kind of in the same situation that you are. He doesn't really have services out there. So he called the power company out, and the guy comes out, oh, yeah, I can do it. It would be 6 months and we can get out here. We'll get it all good. And he goes, 6 months? Any way you guys can do it fast? I go, oh, yeah, I'll do it today for $1,000.
and well, now he might not own that land anymore.
That's possible. His point was, and I thought it was an interesting point, and I've never lived in Mexico, but I've been there a lot of times. He said that you suffer from local corruption a lot in
Yeah,
Mexico, but there's not really this systemic corruption where the federal government's fucking with you in the same type of way. Again, I don't know that that's true, but that's kind of where he was coming from.
well, their new president is a socialist,
Uh-huh.
and she part of her platform was to take all private land away from any landowners.
Oh, that'll work great.
Yeah, socialism works so well.
I just did
Yeah,
this episode with a constitutional guy, Peter Serafin. He's good, and we were watching this interview that Jimmy Dore was, and I love Jimmy Dore. Like, he's so good at. I was listening to him before we started. He's like so good at identifying problems. He sees all the problems, but he's just so fucking out of touch and just a crazy leftist still, that his solution to all of these problems is always more government, which is just
yeah.
baffling to me. And he had this guy Jackson Hinkle on. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's kind of he calls himself a Trump communist. And he says he believes in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and all this crap. And like, Jimmy's interviewing this guy, and he's being soft on him because Jimmy doesn't know anything about communism and he doesn't know anything about capitalism. He just thinks that he should be, more towards communism because that's what left is. He hasn't bothered to learn any of this shit,
Yeah.
And he was talking about somebody the other day, and this was after the interview, and he goes, what is this, like, central control, socialism? Like, I always thought socialism was for the workers. This must be a different type of socialism. And it's like, what? It's like, all socialism is central control. This is fucking crazy. Like, how do you not get this?
Well, I ran some numbers a couple weeks ago, just sitting at home. Like, I think I've decided that we're a socialist country.
Yeah, I could go with that.
And the key things that I looked at was the U.S. government spending is more than half of our GDP, meaning more than half of the money getting spent by the government goes to people of here.
Mhm.
And then if you look at the people that are employed by the government on entitlement, work for a contractor whose main client, or is a subcontractor of
Mhm.
that contractor whose main client is the U.S. government, or work for a nonprofit or NGO that's funded by the government. That's 90 million people of the 160 million person workforce.
My goodness.
So I can't believe that this is capitalism, and definitely not a free market.
Oh, it's absolutely not a free market. It's incredible that, like, Chris Cuomo had that fucking, scorned lover speech down on the floor of the DNC where he was all pissed off that he wasn't in the box seats with all the other rich people. And it's funny to me that like the foot soldiers down on the ground, the cult, the mob that don't think for themselves can hear her say, we're going to make the wealthy finally pay their fair share, while they're all sitting up there watching and not making a noise because they know that's not going to happen. I got in an argument with my mom's husband a while back. He was a cop, so he's, you know, by default, the government is good. And we were arguing about like Department of Homeland Security. And I was like, you know, it's a fucking joke. They don't do anything. It's just a power grab. It's ridiculous. And he goes, well, don't you think that it's possible that we haven't had any terrorism because they're doing their jobs? And it's like, no, not at all. Like, our border is wide open. If terrorists wanted to come and fuck with us right now, they could do it so easily. Oh, but they're building an army within the U.S. It's like, no, they're not. They're not. It's not. It's not going to happen. I don't remember where I was going with that, but you know,
how the government
the government,
how brainwashed people are.
Brainwashed, exactly.
Have you been tracking this Venezuelan street gangs taking over? So I've been incredibly busy with the business and now the land. All that I saw on X was that they took over this place in Colorado. The mayor of the city said that it's a problem, but then the chief of police said it's not a problem. Some dude went and did an expose and couldn't get anybody to talk bad about the street gangs. Of course. So I know that the idea that the Hells Angels going there was probably pretty dumb, unless they had messed with somebody inside the Hells Angels.
Oh, I mean, they'll throw the Hells Angels in jail for a fucking, a turn light being out.
Yeah.
But these guys will go take over a building and, you know.
But
it's so frustrating.
My point was, I don't think that the Hells Angels would go do anything about it because they have no motivation to whatsoever.
And they get thrown straight in jail.
Yeah.
You know, like the country is not backing that portion. You know, the portion that wants law and order and wants that, like the machine is not backing that. You know, these people are running loose, committing crimes like crazy, but they're still road pirating the shit out of people and shaking them down for, you know, turn signals and speeding and all this other shit. You know, I'm addicted to like police videos. I love watching body cam videos and shit. And, you know, one thing I've noticed is in the last few months, especially, way more illegals getting arrested. And I was watching one the other day and it just made me sick. It was this woman had this apartment. You know, her husband was working as hard as he possibly could, I would imagine. Like he was just a Mexican worker. They've got the house for free. She's bored during the day. So she leaves her 2-year-old at home alone. The 2-year-old gets out of the door and starts running down the highway. A concerned mother finally pulled over and got her. And the whole time, they're like shaking down this woman finally. They get a hold of her. The entire time, she wasn't worried about her daughter at all, what's going to happen. All she was worried about was her immigration status. This is going to kill my immigration status. And it's like, I'm not one of these crazy right-wingers who thinks that all of our problems are going to be solved as soon as we shut down the border and deport everyone. Like, I don't think that's the case. And I don't have a huge problem with immigration. I grew up in Northern California and like, it wasn't that bad. You know, I didn't have a huge problem with it. Now I look at these people and I just can't help but think, go back home. Go back to where you came from. We don't want you here.
Yeah, and that's like morally as a human, right? I lived in Las Vegas. I owned a pizza shop. I've met plenty of people who were here illegally. Individual, just like most every human being that I've met, just good person trying to get through this world, right? And that's fine on a case-by-case basis. And I think that's where people get caught. Like, these are... Remember the 90s when Bill Clinton, no illegal aliens?
Yeah.
And then it became illegal immigrants. And now it's undocumented, or then it was undocumented immigrants. And now it's...
newcomers.
No, I haven't heard newcomers.
You haven't heard newcomers? Oh, yeah,
completely retarded.
Newcomers.
Migrant? they're
Yeah,
just like
what is it?
they're softening the word.
Economic migrants or something like that? Yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard that one too.
and they're just softening this word and fine, whatever. Like, I believe that the country was built by people coming here looking for a better life,
Yeah.
but the people came in through the front door, right? And maybe we need to work on that policy as well.
Mhm.
I don't know much about it. I know that it's really hard for people, like talented people, to be here. I believe that Trump made that particularly hard. Like hiring kids out of college, getting them to stay here that are really talent. Like, it's not as easy as it used to be. So like
Mhm.
that definitely needs some tuning up. But the fact is, people broke the law getting here. Period. And we're supposed to believe that these people that have broken the law getting here are now going to start following the laws
Yeah.
that they aren't going to be held accountable for.
They just wanna be good
And
Americans, Daniel. I don't know why you can't see this.
and the implications of, even if they weren't given legal status, which I don't think they should be, is the census counts everybody, whether they're here legally or not.
Mhm.
And those people are getting dumped into um, areas that are so condensed that the voting districts get expanded and all of those turn for one party. It's that looks like you're just kind of importing
Mhm.
an old, just like permanent legislature.
Yeah, and if you
And
move them
that
all
that
to the right spot, you can also change your delegate system, you can change your representatives in the House or there's a lot that
yeah,
can happen with that population movement.
yeah, which is, I mean, that's very anti-American.
Oh, it's sick.
That's not the American dream. And it's not like that one person that, or however many people that I interacted with that are here trying to do better.
Mhm.
That's not my problem. My problem is like everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, it's fucked, man. It's fucked. Like I worked with a lot of great people in restaurants. Like I worked in restaurants for 10 years and there's guys that worked their asses off, working washing dishes at 3 different restaurants, just
Yeah,
trying to get by. I think Larry Sharp's got the best solution for immigration. He essentially says what you do is you reopen Ellis Island, you open a new Ellis Island in Texas. Anybody who comes through has got to go through Ellis Island, and then you say anybody who is here that hasn't gone through the process, you can report to Ellis Island and start the process. Otherwise, you get caught, you're out. You're out of here. And I think
yeah,
I couldn't think of something better than that. Like, and that's this very simple solution. It wouldn't cost a ton of money. I mean, like compared to like what we're paying in, entitlements to these people who are coming in, it wouldn't
yeah,
even make a dent in that.
yeah. The idea that they're getting entitlements is bananas
It's
to me.
ridiculous. While I'm sitting here unable to get on disability, you know?
Yeah. Um, and I guess the new socialist president of Mexico has ordered police and put together buses to bring these people through Mexico safely.
Yeah.
So they're getting an armed escort up to the American border.
Trump keeps saying that they're emptying their prisons and psych wards. And I don't I could see that being true. I don't know that he's
Yeah,
lying about that.
yeah. I heard that crime in Venezuela is way down.
Yeah, right. That's fucking great. Yeah, because it's here in Colorado.
Yeah. Now Chicago.
You know what? There was also a kid, 11-year-old kid arrested in New York City last week for robbing people at knife point on the subway. Immigrant.
Wow.
11-year-old. There was a picture of him, in cuffs getting thrown into the car. It's one of the funniest pictures I've ever seen. Is an 11-year-old
Were
kid.
the cuffs like the cuffs? Did
Yeah,
they even fit him?
I guess. I mean, they put him in the car, and I guarantee you he's back out on the streets.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Like nothing happened. We're not sending you back. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it's still a person on the other side, but it's
Sure.
fucking 15 million people. It's not one.
Imagine the shit that 11-year-old had to go through to be molded into that kid.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like that was
yeah.
not a kid who grew up happy watching cartoons. That was a kid that grew up on the street defending himself. Have you ever seen the movie City of God?
No.
It's an incredible movie. Everybody should watch this movie. It's about the slums of Rio, the favelas. So it starts
Okay.
in the 70s, and it essentially follows the introduction of drugs and then guns, and then that just how everything got to be as crazy it is. There's some scenes in there that'll make your stomach turn, and it's all based on a true story. There was a kid in there that got a camera throughout all of this, like some just poor kid got a hold of a camera and started taking pictures, and nobody knew any better not to take the pictures. So you've got all of these incredible pictures with these massively violent and destructive gangs who just run that entire place. It's really an eye opener. I watched it when I was in high school and it was like, holy shit, this is fucked.
I worked on a project before the pandemic. It was an online work marketplace similar to Fiverr, and we got really close to doing a deal in Brazil. And what was interesting was the people that live in the favelas, they don't pay for electricity, water, or rent.
Mm-mm.
It's just kind of like
it's there
in anarchy zone.
Yeah,
which is cool. But those people, they have a better lifestyle, or sorry, not a better lifestyle, more available cash to spend than middle class people. Going into so they'll like bust into the city, wash dishes, do whatever,
Yeah.
and since they have no overhead. So what we were trying to do is provide them work outside of the country online, where you could get, people, because they're like these are talented human beings that are just like set in this economic circumstance. So we, the hope was to, kind of make it so you can make a little more than going into the city to wash dishes. Stay. So like distributing internet was an interesting challenge that a lot of people that we talked to were working on, but yeah, I don't think I'll be going to Brazil anytime soon anyway.
So well, we'll get to that in a second, but the favelas, the interesting thing about the favelas is when they first started in like the 70s and shit, there was no streets, there was no transportation. So essentially you had to walk into Rio if you wanted to get a job, because there's nowhere to work in the favelas. Like anybody who's running a business is just running it themselves, whether cigarettes or drinks, whatever. It's
little
just
bodegas and shit.
But exactly. Nothing, but not providing any jobs. And then I think it was in like the early 2000s, they built a, like a ski lift essentially that took it down, and that changed everything. Like the streets got cleaned up, crime went way down, and all they needed was economic opportunities. You look at a lot of these situations, like you said, very talented, very smart people who are just thrown into a horrible situation that they can't get out of. But you give them some option, some off-ramp, some car to drive into town on, and they want to make money. They want to earn. They want their area, their town, the favela, whatever you want to call it. They want that to be a nice place to live. They don't want the slums. They don't want the gangs and the violence. Nobody does. We should just build favelas here. I mean,
well, I'm starting to do that out on my 8 acres.
Yeah, right. But I mean, the homeless people, let's just throw them into favelas. That's the only real solution. Get them off the streets and get them into a place. San Francisco's got a bunch of places where you could build favelas out in South San Francisco or Daly City. I'm sure New York has similar type of things. There doesn't seem to be a different way to solve the problem, because you cannot monetize the homeless.
Yeah. Well, you can if you're in California.
Yeah. Well,
25 billion.
Yeah. Those freaking, those NGOs just get so much money, and they don't do a fucking thing.
Nothing.
It's
one interesting thing about Brazil. Do you watch MMA or fighting?
I had to stop. It's too expensive to buy the main events, and I can't follow it if I can't like completely follow it. So to me, it was like I'd rather just not watch it than have one foot in and one foot out. It's just, for me, fuck man, it's like it's like $150 a month to watch that shit.
Yeah, it is. And then you have to have ESPN Plus too.
Yeah, you do.
That's like another $8 a month.
Yeah, and I just can't afford it.
I always imagined that Brazilian fighters were so tough because of the circumstances that we were talking about. There is this parasite called toxoplasma. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. So for the people that haven't,
you get it from cats, right?
Well, yeah. So cat. This parasite lives in the cat's intestine, comes out in its shit. When a rat eats the shit, it makes the rat infatuated with cats. So when the rat smells the cat as opposed to being scared. It comes up like, oh, I'm about to get laid, and then the cat eats it. The toxoplasma enters its system again, and it can enter human systems through cat scratches. In men, it makes them incredibly aggressive when they have it. And Brazil's like the amount of men in Brazil with toxoplasma is like 5 times more than anywhere else in the world, or something like that. I
That's
haven't looked at the
crazy.
stats in a long time,
Yeah, yeah.
but it was like, oh, here's the baseline, and then here's Brazil. So that may also, along with the socioeconomic stuff, that may also have a factor in why there's so many bad motherfuckers from
Yeah.
Brazil.
40 million people in the U.S. have toxoplasmosis.
How many people in Brazil?
Let me look.
My wife does.
That's wild. Like I had heard about it. I had heard that like people in the South have it really bad. I don't exactly remember why the reason was. Brazil, come on. Up to 50% of elementary
50,
school. 50% of
50,
elementary
80%
school.
of adults in some areas.
Wow. Holy shit. So Vito Belfort was just a fucking psychopath from the beginning.
He had a cat as a kid, and then he became one of the baddest motherfuckers ever.
Jesus. One of his fights, man, he split this dude's forehead open. It was just the gnarliest gash I've ever seen. And it was like a 15-second fight. He just ran up on him, and this was before on fucking juice. You remember? Like there was a while where he was juiced up, and then you saw him later on. And it's like, whoa, what happened? He's like 40 pounds lighter than he was. Man,
I saw
that dude was scary.
of Overeem yesterday, and he looks. I mean, so he's chiseled, but he looks about built like me now. And then I saw a picture of like pre-USADA days, and he was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times bigger than me, just like all muscle.
Monster. Just a monster. Absolute freaking monster. So back to Brazil. X has been banned. What do you think? I mean, is this the first domino to fall? Is Europe coming next?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. France?
Somebody from the EU wrote Elon Musk a letter before his space with Trump, which I never listened to. I've been that busy, I never even got to listen to that.
It wasn't great.
I heard the audio was all fucked up.
Dude, the spaces thing, I don't buy it. I don't buy any of those numbers on Twitter.
So Spaces, there was an app that got super popular during the pandemic called Clubhouse.
I remember.
And the funny thing about that is they didn't own their tech. They were just licensing the platform from somebody else, but they got really big because they got some big VCs behind them and stuff. Mm-hmm. And Spaces was the answer to that, I guess. I don't know. I could see those numbers, honestly, with a little fluff, because they've cut out a lot of the bots from what I can see. I still get, like, of my 80 followers on my secret account, I'd say probably half of them are bots.
But, yeah, for sure.
Also, like, it's just a picture. I'm not even going to say what my profile picture is. Like, it's not a real human. I don't have anything on there, and all I do is write tweets so that I can tell my wife jokes that I was thinking of later when she's not around.
I suck at Twitter. I should do it. Like, I could make the podcast bigger. I just hate it. Like, I take it too personally. I can't just like set it and forget it type of thing. If somebody says something to me, I gotta fucking get them back, and I gotta get them back good. You know, and I feel like it's unhealthy, but I have this like, you know, beam of like, do I want a popular podcast or do I want to wreck my soul on Twitter? You know? And to me, it's like, you know, the podcast, if it gets big, it gets big. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm still doing the best I can and doing my part to, you know, try and promote a free society.
I would publish on Twitter.
I do.
I would publish on Twitter.
I do.
Because I have to download the app, but they have the TV now. So.
And that's one of my complaints about Twitter also, is their interface sucks. You have to have Twitter open to listen and watch whatever you're watching. Like, you can't.
Not if you have the paid version.
I have the paid version. It doesn't fucking work for me. I'll try and watch something on there, and I can't go do anything else. That drives me nuts. There's still a couple
Yeah.
things on Twitter that drive me nuts. Like, I don't think that they have debugged it from the original owners. You know, when I go to Twitter and I go to the search bar and I type in an E, Elon Musk is not the first person that comes up. Why the fuck is that?
Yeah.
He owns the site. He's got billions of however, I don't know how many followers. He should be the first person that comes up every time with the letter E. And
I gotta say,
do
you follow him?
Yeah, I do. It'd be interesting to see if yours does it too.
First one on my anonymous account was Elon Musk when I type in E. Okay. And then on my not on my like real account at DT Steel, if anybody wants to see me complain. Yeah, no, it was 1, 2. He's fourth.
That's so
but
weird.
He's also number 1 because he's trending.
Yeah. So that it's just weird to me. Like, I don't understand how you could own the site. If I own that site and somebody told me, hey, you're not the first person that pops up with the letter E, I'd be, oh, we got some serious fucking problems that we need to figure out.
Yeah. That, it's because Twitter made my career as far as that business that I started. So I've always been really, like, when I worked for Silly Bands, I started trending topic 3 times at Silly Bands, and then with the company that I co-founded, Influential, the first part of the business before it turned into what it is was we were doing an arbitrage. So you would, if you were an influencer, you post an article that had ads on it. We own the website. We'd pay you per click, and then we'd make a margin on, because somebody would usually spend like 9 pages or so. They'd go through 9 pages on the site so if we pay you a penny for a click and we're getting so much in ads, we can make like double what we're paying you or whatever. So it has a special place in my heart, and it gives me a lot of hope. But then also Elon posted or quoted Tucker yesterday about, whoever he had on, that was like, Churchill was the bad guy in World War II. I know nothing about this. I'm not saying that. And then Mark Cuban was, take down this tweet. And then Elon took down the tweet.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
I hate Mark Cuban. He's such a piece of shit.
Oh, my God.
He's just the worst, man. I think he wants to be a politician, too.
I thought when they did the switcheroo that Mark Cuban could have been the guy that they threw in there. Because a lot of people like him through Shark Tank, but he quit Shark Tank. He has that basketball team, but he sold majority ownership to the Adelsons, which also is confusing.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that both families are Jewish, Adelson's the biggest contributor to the Republican Party by a lot. So how are you selling controlling interest to your basketball team? But I thought he was going to make a run for president. I worked on a project. The guy ended up being a con artist and stole a bunch of money, but he was trying to launch a crypto that would be infrastructure for an independent party. And at the time, Mark Cuban was working a lot on ballot access, which I really admired. And it seemed like he was trying to see if he could get on the ballots as an independent. But now he's just like so far left that I don't even like the idea of left or right, because I'm not on any of those goddamn teams. None of those people care about me, but it's just like so ridiculous.
They both hate us for different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's something. I had 3 names in mind when the coup happened. I was thinking, what's his name? Mark Cuban, Matthew McConaughey, Kevin Costner. I didn't think they were going political at all. I thought they were going to pull a full-on switcheroo, throw in an actor. They tried tossing Matthew McConaughey out after I think it was after Uvalde. They threw him up on a press conference in Texas, and he just did horrible, just awful. And it's funny because he doesn't understand real life. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked at his Instagram account. I don't know if he still posts, but it's hilarious because he's like acting on Instagram. And you can tell, it's like, how many takes did you do on that video? And I imagine he doesn't post them anymore because he was just getting brutalized every time he posted. And then Kevin Costner, I thought Kevin Costner would be a good one because of Yellowstone. He played a politician in Yellowstone. He kind of could play both. I'm a liberal from California and LA and Hollywood, but also I'm a cowboy. So you can trust me not to destroy everything. I thought he would have been a good pick for them, but the guy's got a lot of money and he probably doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, I was with you on that because, like, I believed in my heart of hearts that the most disliked vice president ever had no shot at becoming president. And, but for somebody like Newsom couldn't run because California's in shambles. But in 4 years, especially if he's not running California anymore, that could be all just like, oh, that's the past. Let's look on,
I think he's served out I think he'll be done with his 2 terms after the next election or before the next election. So there'll be like 2 years of him not being the governor, which is probably plenty of time for these retards to forget what he did.
And then Whitmer, so I felt like it was political suicide for anybody. And Harris couldn't win, so they might try to throw somebody else in. I thought they might pull in, like, there's talk of the CEO of Chase, which probably would have been
Jamie
terrible.
Dimon?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, as far as, like, I don't hate the idea of somebody who's run a massive organization for a profit running a country rather than a career politician. But that's just, I don't know much about his beliefs or anything.
But he's also like an establishment creature. Every dollar he's made has been predicated on working with the government. If the government...
Same with Elon.
Exactly. And that's my biggest problem with Elon is now he's apparently right-wing. So we've got this billionaire socialist who's fucking right-wing. Makes no sense at all. Every dollar he makes is... How many people do you know that are contracting SpaceX right now? I would guess one, the government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's doing better than Boeing. They have to go bail out. This is one of the fucking craziest things to me right now is there are people stuck in space indefinitely, and they have to send SpaceX out to gather them, but they don't know when that's going to happen.
They're dead. They're dead already.
And it's not all over the news.
No.
Oh, also, brought to you by Boeing. The fuck does Boeing need to bring me my news for? Or Pfizer? That's another thing that I didn't understand very well until the pandemic was like brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, good guys, they're just keeping the news funded. No, they're influencing because they're the largest spenders.
Yeah. I mean, one of RFK's main points for this election is we have too many sick children in this country. Like children are just out of control sick. And nobody's talking about it. I heard Joe Rogan say the other day, why isn't this the biggest story on every news channel? It's because every news channel is owned by the pharmaceutical companies. That's all of their advertisement. The only reason CNN and MSNBC are surviving right now is through government money and
cable subscriptions.
Yeah, and
they get a budget from the cable company. They don't have to advertise.
But also the pharmaceutical companies are it's billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Yeah. So you cannot be critical of your main funder. You just can't do it. They're never going to let that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what can we do? We can grow some strawberries, some tomatoes.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks because it's boring. Like I was listening to Dave Smith on Candace Owens the other day, and she was kind of saying the same thing. She was like, I had to learn how to garden. How embarrassing is it to be 30 years old and show up at somebody's house and go, can you teach me how to plant something? And like that's fucked. My ex-wife was that way. She loved everything about the garden, all the, the plants, the trees, loved looking at all of it, but did not like taking care of any of it.
It's a lot of fucking work.
It is. I've got a 1/2 acre lot. That's a lot to take care of with one hand.
Yeah.
It's rough. I've done a lot of work on this place. When I moved in, I had grass up to all my fences. So I had to weed eat the entire lawn. And now I've got rock everywhere. So I can just roll through with my tractor mower, not weed eat anything. It's nice. Like I like having the yard, but it is a lot more work than I anticipated.
Yeah. So the Tucker interview that came out yesterday, where they talk about World War II, I don't even Is Martyr Mate is the guy that was on there. I don't know
okay.
the dude's name. And he gave a different view on what happened in World War II than what we were taught in schools. And boy, are people mad.
Yeah.
And I know nothing about World War II other than what I've been told through like documentaries and shit like that, and it's always pro America. But people are calling it Nazi propaganda. Like, is there a central Nazi party? I mean, other than the people in Ukraine that we gave a bunch of money to, are there really Nazis out in the world pushing this propaganda? And why is it so hard to believe that maybe we weren't given the truth from the same people that lied us into Vietnam War? There wasn't even a fucking attack on the ship in Vietnam, and we got in that war.
Yeah.
COVID, 9/11, or not 9/11, but Iraq, Afghanistan. Is it really that big of a stretch to say like, hey, maybe they didn't tell us the truth?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's anti-Semitic to even question that, and that's bothersome, I think.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase somebody else again. We're not going to have any of my own thoughts on this podcast, but Dave Smith kind of did the same thing on Tucker, and I think what he's talking about, without watching the podcast, he's probably talking about Pat Buchanan's book, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. And essentially, he goes through and says the tariffs, all of the World War I punishments that we gave, all of this was unnecessary, and this entire thing could have been avoided. Dave says that the reason that they freak out about this, and you're allowed to talk shit about every other war, is because World War II is our origin story.
Okay.
And it's a righteous story. We came in and saved the world from this evil, disgusting man. We saved all the Jews. And if you throw shade on that, now our origin story is no longer righteous, but evil. So you cannot have an evil origin story while continuing to be, the shining hill on the, shining city on the hill.
I wouldn't call us that.
No, I wouldn't either. Maybe the favelas in Brazil.
Or the shiny city in the favela.
Yeah, the shiny city in the favela.
Oh, there's your podcast title.
I know. I had both sides hate us for different reasons, but this one's better. What do you think about Kamala? I've loved watching right-wing media. Like, I love to watch Steven Crowder react to these people because he's such a fucking moron and he takes it so personally. So like, you're watching Kamala do her speech and everybody knows she's lying. She's not going to make real points. She's a fucking moron. And he's just getting, oh, she's lying. She's lying. I have to get up and leave and throw things. And oh, I'm so angry. And it's like, dude, none of those people give a shit. And their point is kind of like, well, she's not running on anything. She doesn't have any policies. People aren't going to vote for somebody who doesn't. Yeah, they don't care about policies. All they want is someone to say, I'm going to make it all right. I'm going to save you from the boogeyman. It's a vibes election. That's what the media has been saying. She doesn't need to have policies because she's about vibes. It's a vibes election, which is so fucking weird. It's one of those things where, the media gets their marching orders and they go, what's the word of the day? Weird, and they just all repeat it. Vibes, weird vibes.
My thoughts on Kamala probably aren't that unique. Like, her family's origin story is pretty interesting because her great-grandfather was a slave owner in Jamaica. Yeah. That's and awesome. Well, they aren't close with that side of the family, so don't worry about that part.
Yeah, he disowned her.
But her father was somehow able to afford UC Berkeley coming from Jamaica, which by my estimation, you'd have to be in the top 1% of families in Jamaica to be able to afford an American college education. And that wealth had to trickle down from slavery. I just can't fathom how else that happened. And then she grew up in Canada from a Berkeley educated family, and then just came here later in life. She was a citizen. I'm not a birther or anything like that. She is an American citizen. Like, she is qualified to be president, but she didn't grow up here. She wasn't part of the middle class working at McDonald's like you thought with ChatGPT about.
Yeah, I know. And it's so ridiculous. And it'll tell you straight up like, oh, yeah, she did. And then you pressure it and it admits and falls apart. And finally, by the end, it's like, yeah, she's a liar.
Yeah. But the thing that so like none of my I guess the information about her family owning slaves is new.
Yeah,
Her
I never heard
record
that.
as a cop is like, oh, atrocious. Everybody know, well, people should know that she, kept people in prison past their term to keep them working for free. I guess slave ownership runs their family's blood. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
all those things
That's
that
what Tulsi Gabbard should have said. That'd have been
yeah.
way better. Hey, where'd your dad get that
But
money, by the way?
the thing that's most bothersome about it is just being able to watch the media turn from like weeks, months, if not weeks before they're saying that she should drop out to give Biden a better chance to win. Like that was like a Sunday talking point
Yeah.
shortly before, within months of Biden dropping out. Um, and then it was just this switch, this she is brat, blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
Oh my
Worked
God.
at McDonald's, and then Tim Walz. Oh my God, what a fucking nightmare! His own family's voting for Trump.
I didn't know that.
There's a picture. Like his family posted a picture. It says like Walz family for Trump on the blue Trump flag.
Well,
With all of them in Trump shirts.
like everybody should take pause when you listen to him and he talks about his origins. I grew up in Arkansas or wherever he fucking grew up, some red state. I think it was Arkansas. And, I learned this and I learned that and I learned all this. So I went to Minnesota and became governor. Why'd you go to Minnesota? Because Arkansas is smart enough not to put your ass in office. You're a fucking socialist. To me, he's a lot scarier than Kamala. I don't think Kamala's a communist because that would, like Jimmy Dore, require some reading. I think she kind of just blows with the wind for the most part.
Well, her father was.
Yeah, but it would still require some study on her part, and I'm not sure she's much for study. I think she likes to suck that dick instead of do the work.
I mean, who doesn't?
Right? I mean,
if that's your thing, like lean into it, buddy.
I don't have a problem with it.
No, yeah. Yeah, so it's just like it's really telling if you go back and watch how she was viewed and where she's at now. I think that people like donors are dumping money into the betting markets to make her look closer on like you know what Polymarket is?
No.
It's a decentralized betting platform. They don't take Americans, to my knowledge, anymore, and you're able to bet on anything. So like I think Trump's going to win the presidency. Though if somebody wants to bet the other side of that, it creates a line. And Kamala went from like 6% before, Biden dropped out. And now it's like, it's staying really close to 50-50. Let's see where it's at now.
Last I saw, it was like 52-48.
It's, it went better for Trump today, 53-46. But they're saying that there's been $97 million bet on Kamala and only $100 million bet on Trump.
Huh.
Where did all that money come from?
I don't know.
Either a bunch of people think that there's probably not going to be a fair election, which, man, some of those states are doing some shady shit.
I don't think any elections are fair. Like, I think there's fuckery,
I think there's fuckery
on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. But to what extent? Well, to the extent where they sued RFK to try to keep him off the ballot. And then when he tried to pull off the ballot in swing states, they're making him stay on.
Yeah.
Because it benefits them. Like, that's just like blatant fuckery. So like watching all the blatant fuckery, I haven't seen as much from the right this time. Maybe I haven't looked for it either. But it's just like so fucking obvious. And then you can have conversations with normal people that are generally smart people. And they will argue to the teeth with you about what a great president she's going to be. And these are like, fuck the cops. I hate cops.
Yeah.
Now we got a cop. Okay. That was in the past.
Yeah. And I mean, she was this aggressive prosecutor, and now all of a sudden she's woke and brat and whatever vibes. This woman was a psychopathic, sociopathic cop. She, like you said, slave labor, fighting fires, dangerous shit. That's not stamping, stamping license plates. You're out fighting forest fires with no fucking experience, which is so dangerous and just so fucked up. You know, we were watching this I don't remember if it was like Brett Kavanaugh or she was asking, you know, somebody, can you think of any government policy that can regulate the male body? And they're like, no, I don't think I can. And it's like, what about the draft? we're kidnapping. You can kidnap men and toss them into a war zone and have them blown up. Or you arrest people and throw them into a forest fire. I was a tree guy for like 5 years. You don't bring on people with you that have zero experience. It's just dangerous for everyone else involved. Like, you can't be doing a dangerous job while you're trying to wrestle somebody into the right position. Or it just doesn't work that way. So, man, when I heard that, I was like, what a sick cunt. You know, just what a sick sociopath. Like, so dangerous. I don't know if anybody died in those fires, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was burns, injuries, you know, burned lungs. Because if you don't know how fire moves, also, you may not be in the right position. Trees, when you cut a tree down, those things can shift on an instant.
I knew tree families. Those are some of the fucking wildest people I ever met.
They're heroes.
But like every brother broke his back a couple times, and it's like, and this like a family that grew up doing it. I couldn't imagine just throwing somebody out there. I have to wrap it soon.
Yeah, no, we're almost done. Oh, we are done.
Yeah. Shit, what was I gonna say? Yeah. Anyway, Kamala sucks, and so does the media. We already do.
Fuck the police.
It's just fuck the police, and like just watching the media turn like that for one person. Like, I don't understand how they're able to. I know that politicians have executive privilege. Mm-hmm. They're able to go out and lie. And I know that Obama passed some bill that allowed for government propaganda to get broadcast. But I don't know how these major corporations can go out and just lie, just straight lie, and then there's absolutely no accountability. Going all the way back to weapons of mass destruction. Mm-hmm. Like how are you able to put that out there? Or like the
Bibi Netanyahu is still prime minister.
Did you see that the God, I wish we had another 2 hours.
I know, right?
The media company that runs Timcast just got indicted by the Department of Justice for taking Russian money. They're already running this a Russian interference shit again because Harris is doing bad. I don't know if they took the money or not, but this isn't the first that I've heard of. Like, they're already back to the Russia playbook. And it's like, oh, it's Russia. Like,
and it could be the CIA with a Russian, IP address. Yeah. Like, that's an easy fucking setup. Or the FBI, whoever they want to do it. I also heard that he's suing the Harris campaign for running a deceptive ad on him.
Hopefully. Yeah. God, I hope.
People got to take this shit seriously. The Republicans aren't near as savvy as the Democrats. They are so much more politically savvy.
They write strongly worded letters and then they stop.
Yeah. It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Like everything that the Judiciary Committee came out with about Biden and bribes. Where's that? What happened to that? They wrote a strongly worded letter. Anyway,
Josh Hawley.
Let's try to do this more often.
I know. I'm ready whenever. I was just gonna say real quick before we go. I just heard an interview with Josh Hawley where he said that during the assassination attempt, the majority of the agents on site were not Secret Service; they were Homeland Security, and they had zero training aside from a 2-hour webinar where the sound didn't work. I'm sure he'll write a strongly worded letter. And that'll be it.
They must have done the webinar in Twitter Spaces.
Yeah. All right, man. It's been a pleasure. We'll do this again whenever you're free, man. I got nothing going on.
All right, I'll shoot you a text in a couple weeks.
All right, man. Sounds good.
All right, sweet.